And he violates that right, alayhi salam. And when he does it, then even though there's lots of things to learn from that incident, just one thing. He wasn't even a prophet yet. The incident of Tur has not happened yet. He hasn't gone up to the mountain and have a word with Allah. None of that has happened yet. He's just a believer right now. He's a mu'min. But he's not a Rasul yet. And when he does this, he says, Rabbi inni zalamtu nafsi faghfirli. My master, I have done wrong to myself. Before I get to the next part, I have done wrong to who? Myself. This is different from inni zalim. I'm a wrongdoer. I've done wrong to myself. This is a very important distinction. Because if you say inni zalim, you have identified yourself as a wrongdoer. This is who I am. This is my identity. I am a wrongdoer. But when I say I have done wrong to myself, you have identified an action. The action is bad. And that action's first victim, the victim was someone else, the guy who died. So you would think, Musa alayhi salam would say, Rabbi inni zalamtu ahadan. I wronged somebody else. That's my victim who's lying there dead. He says, Rabbi inni zalamtu nafsi. I've done wrong to myself. I've done wrong to myself. I've hurt myself with this sin. I'm also a victim of this sin in addition to the person I hurt. But he's concerned about that wrong that he's done to himself, and he turns to Allah and he says, Faghfirli, forgive me. Now, by the way, Musa alayhi salam might not ever be able to get the forgiveness from that victim. That victim who got killed, right? He doesn't have a chance to say, I forgive you or I don't forgive you. So, you know, if we had that kind of anxiety, we'd say on Judgment Day, that victim's going to come after me, he's going to be like, yo, you killed me. I'm going to take all your deeds. Now you're going to hell. You can't be forgiven. You killed me. Hand me everything. What did Allah say when Musa alayhi salam said, forgive me? He said, فَغَفَرَ لَهُ. So he forgave him. Why is this important? Because even when you've wronged somebody else, even when you cheated somebody else, even when you hurt somebody else, on the one hand, we have to try to make things right. We'll talk about that in a second. But first and foremost, don't confuse that with Allah's forgiveness. Your forgiveness does not depend on another human being. It only depends on Allah. Your mother doesn't get to tell you, Allah will never forgive you. Because she doesn't get an email from Allah telling her that you are going to hell. Your cousin doesn't get to tell you. Your uncle doesn't get to tell you. Your friend doesn't get to tell you. Somebody who hates you doesn't get to tell you, Allah will get you. They don't have that guarantee from Allah. And they don't also have the license to say, until I forgive you, I know Allah won't forgive you. That's not how Allah's forgiveness works. It's not dependent on another human being. We have to be very clear about this. I owe apologies to people I've done wrong. And if I'm not in a position to apologize, maybe I owe something else. Let me tell you about owing apology from it. I want to make this concept clear. Asking Allah's forgiveness, well, if you're sincere in asking Allah's forgiveness for the wrong you've done, even the wrong you've done to others, it does not depend on how they feel about you. They could still hate your guts, but Allah can still forgive you. Those are two separate things. But now let's talk about the people you hurt. Because the people you hurt might say, hey, why did Allah forgive him? That's not fair. They get to do all that and they get maghfirah. I don't like this deal. They should at least pay something. We believe in Allah's absolute justice. We believe in Allah's rahmah. I trust Allah's judgment more than I trust my own judgment. When you watch an episode of Judge Judy or something and you see the verdict, you're like, she was a little biased. We don't think like that about Allah. I don't worry that Allah will let some criminal off the hook or unfairly forgive someone or they deserve to get punished and I feel like justice wasn't done. I have this tawakkul in Allah's wisdom. I have this reliance on Allah's wisdom, His justice, His all-knowledge. He knows things I can't possibly know. He understands things I can't possibly understand. And so when He makes that decision, I have to step back. I don't know. I can't say about anybody else. But now finally, so let's get to that before I wrap up today's khutbah. And that is, what about the people that you did wrong? What about them? I'm reminded of the case of Al-Wahshi. Al-Wahshi, for those of you who don't know, in the battle of Uhud, was he threw the spear that killed the beloved uncle of Rasulullah. Right? So he was paid to do so, and he was successful. And not only was he able to kill him, then the body of the Prophet's uncle was mutilated in this after the battle. Right? So but the cause of all of that is Al-Wahshi. Years pass by, Islam is victorious, Makkah has been conquered, and Al-Wahshi actually accepts Islam. He accepts Islam. And when he accepts Islam, we know that all your previous sins are forgiven. Now he wants to come meet the Prophet ﷺ. But the Sahaba remember him. They remember him. If they see him even from a distance, they're not even going to ask questions. Because this guy's dangerous, right? He can throw a spear from a distance. He's going to get killed. So when people are coming in huge numbers to accept Islam and to meet with the Prophet, to give him bay'ah, to pledge their hand to him, and there's a line formed and people are coming and meeting, he cloaked his face to come to meet with Rasulullah. And he finally got to the point where he's right in front of the Prophet. He removes his cloak, the Prophet recognizes him. Rasulullah recognizes him. And when he recognizes that face, what memories are coming back to the Prophet ﷺ? What happened with his uncle? And he said, aren't you? And he said, yes, I am. Now it's too late for him to get killed, yeah? Because now he's in aman, he's in safety. The Prophet asked him, how did you do it? What happened? He didn't want to say, but the Prophet made him tell him. He made him tell him. We know Allah has already guaranteed for any sins you have committed before. We know what happened with Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Others. Khalid ibn Walid killed, because of him so many Sahaba got killed at Uhud. And he's one of our heroes. Why? Because once you accept Islam, previous sins are forgiven. This man killed someone the Prophet ﷺ deeply loved, and now he's accepted Islam. And after hearing that story, of course he's still forgiven, but the Prophet ﷺ told him, but I can't bear to see you. He couldn't see him. He moved far away somewhere. He couldn't look at him. In the end, Rasulullah ﷺ is also a human. And when he sees this man, he remembers the mutilated body of his beloved uncle. He remembers all of what happened. So it's hard for him to process that. You know what? While the Prophet ﷺ has accepted that this man is Muslim and his previous sin, including the murder of his uncle, is forgiven, that doesn't mean that he's over it. That doesn't mean that it still doesn't cause him pain. But you see how in our religion those two things are separate? Somebody might still be hurt by what you did, but that doesn't mean that Allah hasn't forgiven you. Allah has forgiven you. Even if the one you hurt was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Can you imagine? Even if that was the case. So we have to clean up our thoughts about how forgiveness works. We also have to realize from a story like this one, that if you really hurt somebody badly, you said a lot of bad things about them. You spread rumors about them. You humiliated them. You cheated them. You did all kinds of bad things to them. And their life became very difficult because of you, if that happened. And years later, you feel bad, right? And you don't want them coming after you on Judgment Day. So you decide to pick up the phone or call or show up at their house and ring the bell. Please don't ring that bell. Please don't make that phone call. Because that in itself can be an act of mercilessness. It may be just hearing your voice can trigger them again. It can bring back all those bad memories. That might be a difficult thing for them. That's too selfish of you and me that we think we can just call somebody or face somebody and say, hey, sorry, those fingers of yours I chopped off? Sorry about that. I feel really bad. I realize now that was wrong. Don't expect somebody to be so understanding. And put yourself in those shoes. If you saw a person like that, even if they said sorry, maybe you just want to stay away now. Maybe you don't want that person in your view. So out of rahmah to them, maybe, if there's room for reconciliation, that's something else. But our deen is about isti'nas. Like you don't talk to somebody, you don't engage with somebody until you know that they'll feel good about it. This is not about how you're going to feel. This is about how they're going to feel. You've done it. You and I have done enough damage. So we don't have to put ourselves on them. Right? But if you find from other sources they're okay to talk to you, that's a different story. That's a different category altogether. Right? So this is what I wanted to dedicate this khutbah to, this concept.